So, welcome to Maya, and I'm going to do this video is all about just making a thing in Maya, going through all the different things we're going to be using. It's a follow along kind of thing, similar to what we're going to be doing in the first session. We're just going to make a thing from scratch using our basic tools that we're going to be using throughout the entire year. We're really going to see how simple all this stuff is, but also where once you understand how the tools work, it's simple, but obviously without knowing the tools, it looks impossible. You can start making bad decisions. So here's Maya. We've gone over the UI video, so we're not going to do that. There's also other videos that have been and are going to be made, which are going to be going over other stuff. So this is just going to be another, getting your feet into Maya. First of all, before we do anything, whenever we're working in Maya, we need to be working in a project. Regardless of if this is going to go into a game engine, an animation, or just made for poops and giggles, the best thing to do is make a project folder for everything. So when you're dealing with your geometry, when you've got your materials, your textures, if you're doing any data stuff with like baking or anything like that, it's all contained in a very, very safe place that even if you move this folder around, nothing's going to lose its connection. The reason is, if we model something and then we apply a material, apply a texture, and we've just got that stuff saved to the desktop, so our textures on the desktop and our models on the desktop, and then we decide, oh, you know what, I'm going to clean my desktop up. I'm going to put this texture inside a folder, inside a folder, inside a folder, and then I'm going to put this object inside a folder, inside a folder, inside a folder. Because you're moving these two objects away from their destination, they lose connection. So then when you open up Maya again, your textures aren't going to be there and you're going to reapply everything. And if you're dealing with a large environment with a lot of textures, that's just going to be an absolute pain to reapply everything. We probably won't be doing any of this, but if you ever come to the point where you're using like really nice data and you're using data which is being called from a specific file, or what we call referencing for a specific file, a lot of animators do, or animation does this a lot. Again, the same thing, you need to have that reference folder always in the same position, so that even if you move the entire folder structure around, the reference still knows what it's connecting to. Long story short, we need to set up a project before we start doing anything, and it's very, very easy. So we go up to File, top left, and then we come down to where it says Project. We got Project Window and Set Project. Bad terminology. Set Project doesn't mean make a project. It means redirect Maya back to a pre-existing project. Project Window is what we want. So we go Project Window, then we get this. This is basically making our new project. So I want to go and click New, and that gives me the chance to actually name a project. So this is going to be Lamp. And my destination, now by default, this sends it into the Documents, Maya, Project. It sends it into like an obscure folder somewhere. And I've had it all the time where people say, oh, Maya's corrupting my file, it's not saved it, da 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 da. And they're blaming Maya for something, when really what they've done is not looked at where the file destination is, and we end up finding it like within 2 minutes. Always remember, save your stuff to the desktop. Do not save it directly to the OneDrive using the browser extension. Do not do that. Also, if you've got a hard drive plugged in, don't save it directly to the hard drive, especially if it's a HD hard drive, which is what HD stands for. Basically, the one where it's got moving parts in, like a proper hard drive disk. That's because that's going to have that hard drive working overtime all the time, and it's going to break your hard drive, and it's also going to corrupt your files. So always save to the desktop, work off the desktop, and then when you're backing up, send it to the OneDrive and send it to the hard drive. So that's why always save it to your desktop, or to a place on the local computer where you're always going to save stuff and you know where it is. Cool. So with that, I've named my project, I've set my destination, everything else I'm going to leave alone. All I'm going to do is click Accept. And then just to see what's happening, I'm going to go to File again, Save Scene As, and then where it sent me. Okay, so it sent me to Desktop, Lamp, Scenes. Awesome. So Scenes is the folder where we're going to save all our actual Maya files, and our textures, if we were to use textures, would go to a different folder. Cool. That's good. I'm happy with that. Right, so let's actually start doing some stuff. So number one, we're going to be making a model, and it's going to be like a Victorian oil lamp kind of thing. I use this a lot for training people in Maya, just because there's a lot of fun shapes, square and cylindrical, sometimes a bit of a spherical shape in there. So number one, we need reference. So I have already got reference, yeah. Reference, obviously, we've learned in Art Fundamentals is incredibly important. For 3D, it's incredibly, for everything, it's incredibly important. Always need never assume you know what something looks like. You can tell me you know until you're blue in the face, but I know for a fact you don't actually know what it looks like. So, with a piece of reference, we have all the ideas, all the knowledge of how the shape actually looks. And what I'm looking for in this as well is all the what we call primitives. And a primitive is a basic shape. Really, there is only, for me, 3 basic primitives, and then you've got slightly more complex primitives. Cylinder, cube, and sphere. And then you've got cones, torus, and plane. But the main ones that we'll be using most of the time is either cylinder, cube, or sphere. And we're also going to learn to model in a correct direction. So why would I ever start with this? The best place to start is at the bottom. Build from the ground up. So we're looking at this, looking at our reference. So if we look at the bottom, what shape are we finding? What shape are we looking at? Well, we've got this kind of like plate. It's a cube. It's a squashed cube. If you got there's depth to it, there's thickness to it, but it's a square. It's a cube. So what we want to do first of all is bring in a cube, is make a cube, and then we're going to build from that. I'm also going to utilize this whole grid. I'm not going to make anything very small. I'm going to make it big. So first of all, we go to either create polygon primitives and then find the thing we want to start off with, being a cube, or we can click on our, if we're in poly modeling here on our shelf, we can find the cube. Dead easy. Now, I always have a setting turned on, which is interactive creation, which is inside polygon primitives, down at the bottom, interactive creation. If I turn that off and I bring in a cube, it makes a small version at the bottom, in the middle of the world, which is small. This is only a centimeter cube, and it's also going through the floor like that, which I don't like. Build up from the floor. Don't build through the floor. So how I make my first initial shapes is always have interactive creation turned on, and then pick your primitive, and then hold shift and click out. So I'm going to click somewhere near the middle of the world. Don't have to be perfect at first. Somewhere near the middle of the world, hold shift, click and drag out, and I can make a cube to the size that I want, which is nice. Now we've made that cube, we've got something to work with. Before we actually start affecting it, what I'm going to do is just move my reference off to the side, is I'm going to make sure that it's in the middle of the world. So on our channel box here, which if you don't see this, if you see like this, or you see something that doesn't look like it, it's docked here on the right hand side, just like vertically on the right hand side there. Click it, you get your channel box. The only 2 things I'm going to change in here is translate X and translate Z. If I change translate Y, it moves up and down. So I don't want to do that. I only want to change the translate X, which, you know, if I move the object over here, for instance, what translate X does, if I set that to 0, it moves it into the middle of the X-axis. And then translate Z, middle of the Z-axis. Super good. And then just underneath, we've got in inputs, you've got polycube 1, and inside there you've got beginning parameters. And there's only 2 things I'm going to change in here, which is width and depth. And I'm just going to change those to 24. I'm not going to change height. I'm just going to change width and depth. So width, 24. Depth, 24. There we go. And all I'm doing is just inputting those numbers and pressing enter to confirm. And now I've got a nice cube that's perfectly in the middle of the world. And at least in the dimensions that I want, it's perfect. Because I'm going to change the height myself, so the height I don't care about. Okay, so what's actually happening with this cube? It's very squashed. Before it comes to this cylindrical section here, it's very, very squashed. So, how do we get that to that? So we can use scale if we want to, so pressing R for scale. We can use scale and we can bring it in, but then we get this where we're actually, again, leaving the floor. So the best thing to do is actually grab the top face and just push it down. How do we do that? I hear you scream silently. Super easy. If I hold right click while hovering near or on top of my geometry, I get this. So I'm holding right click and I'm getting what we call the context or the radial menu, and this is all the things I can do to my, well, grab on my mesh, all the things I can basically start affecting it with. You can ignore this bottom box down here. Ignore that for now. We're just worried about this top bits here. So I want to grab the top face. So I need to grab a face. Oftentimes I'll tell people to say stuff out loud. You know, if you're trying to think of how to do something, like, what do you want to do? Well, I want to split the edge. Okay. You want to split the edge. Edge being the important word. That means you'll have to be in edge mode. What do you want to do? Oh, I want to move the vertex. Vertex. Oh, I want to scale the face. Face. Okay, so I'm going to grab a face because I'm going to push that face down. This is a face. So I'm going to grab that face. Just click it. Press W for my move tool. And I'm just going to pull it down on the y-axis, which is the green one. I'm going to pull it down. And I'm going to eyeball that depth in there. So, does that feel about right? That feels about right. Again, doesn't have to be perfect for this. We're just learning how to use the stuff. So what have we done so far? We've made a project folder. We've brought in some basic primitive. We've changed some settings so it's a little bit easier to work with. Nice, clean numbers rather than numbers that are like decimal places. We've grabbed that top face and we've pushed it down. Awesome. Now we're starting to model stuff. You know, we're starting to get some stuff done. So now what we're going to do is make this cylinder in the middle. There's a couple of different ways we can do this. I'm going to do, and they're both basically as complex as each other. I'm going to do something which is maybe a little bit complex, but it makes it cleaner. I'm going to bring in another piece of geometry. I'm going to bring in a cylinder to make this cylinder, obviously. But I'm going to make sure eventually that it's actually physically part of the mesh. I'm not just going to bring in a cylinder and place it so it's, you know, kind of in the right area, not connected. I'm going to make it one solid mesh. Sorry, my phone's going off. There you go. So I'm going to make a cylinder. So where do I go to get a cylinder? Well, either create polygon primitives or cylinder. So what I'm going to do is click cylinder, hold shift, drag it out, and then make sure it's 0 on the x-axis, 0 on the z-axis. Now what I've got to do, and this is where we start to think about some of the rules of 3D, is I've got a 20-sided cylinder here. The basic kind of cylinder is always 20-sided. Got a 20-sided cylinder here, and I can affect the radius. So if I actually click the word radius on the side here, inside inputs, polygon cylinder 1, click radius, and then if I hold down my middle mouse and drag left and right, I can actually increase and decrease the radius. Anything here, if I click on the word and middle mouse drag in the scene, I can affect that parameter. So what I'm going to do is, again, look at this. It looks like it's a few, like 4 or 5 centimeters from the edge there. So what I'm going to do is best to eyeball that in. Somewhere about there. So one of the big things with 3D is when you're joining two objects together, you've got to think about what's happening on the lowest density mesh. So the lowest density mesh here is my cube, because the cube has 6 sides. My cylinder here, the radius is 20 going round, but then I've got 20 faces at the top and 20 faces at the bottom. That's 60 faces. That's 10 times more than what my cube has got, so that's not going to work for me. Two things are very easy. One, I'm actually going to get rid of the top and bottom faces altogether. I don't need them. And two, I can decrease the amount of edges going round. Very easy. Again, it's on my little thing on the side here. Subdivision axis. What I can do is start to increase and decrease that. Again, by clicking on subdivision axis. Not the... Well, you can do it inside here, but get in the good habit of clicking on the word itself. You can click on the field and do it as well, but again, just get in the good habit, click on the word, and I can decrease that. There are things that I do watch out for when I'm doing this, and this is where things can get a bit complicated if you've not been doing this for nearly 20 years. So, by default, we're 20 faces going round. What that gives us is a really nice cross section. We've got a line going down the middle, and then we've got a line going down the horizontal like that. And that's what I want. I want some kind of number here which gives us a vertical and a horizontal cross section. Because then I'm working very neatly. You know, I'm working in quarters, which when you're working with cubes is often very good. When you're trying to bring one thing into another, it's often very good to work in quarters if you're dealing with basic primitives. So what I'm going to do is start to decrease this number until I get to another one. Okay, what's that? 16. Okay. I can decrease it a little bit more. 12. Okay. I think 12 might be alright. But what I'm going to do is actually bump this up to 16. So I've got 16 going round. Okay. Now why I'm doing that is because with 16 it also gives us the diagonal corners here, in here, and here, and here. I don't think 12 does give us that. No, it doesn't. 12 gives us flat edges there, which is kind of what I don't want, because I'm thinking about what it's going into. You know, this has a corner on it here. So if I draw a line from this corner to the cylinder, you see there's nothing there for it to meet. But if I increase it to 16, there's an edge there where it meets up, and that's going to be important. Anyway, I made a cylinder, and it's 16 edges. And you'd be surprised how much only 4 faces makes a difference. Cool. The next thing for me to do is scale it, because obviously this is tall and this is quite squat. So what I'm going to do is just start to roughly get the depth of it in there. I'm just using the scale tool. So I'm pressing R, and I'm just using the scale tool just to scale it up and down. Another way of affecting the size of stuff. Okay, yeah, that looks about right. You know, I just want to eyeball a lot of this stuff in. Cool. So right away we've started to get some shapes involved. Now, one thing that I see a lot of new modelers do is they leave it like this. They leave it as 2 separate models, and they kind of just place stuff into the same kind of area and leave it. That's not necessarily a good thing. What I want to do is actually make these one solid mesh. I'm going to bring these together, but I've got to do some stuff first. Now, there is one easy / hard way of doing this, where we would use something called a Boolean and actually connect these 2 things together and then do a lot of cleanup. I'm not going to show you how to do that cleanup because that's a real pain. What I'm going to do though is show you how to delete faces, show you how to align faces, align these edges together so they are actually on the same level, and then start to bridge and connect all this stuff together. It's a step-by-step process, but we're quickly involving ourselves with the tools. We've not used any of our big 5 tools yet. Really, the 5 tools which all modeling can be done with. Okay, so we've got the cylinder. It's all good and stuff. I want to take off the top faces and I want to take off the bottom faces. So I'm just going to move it to the side a sec. And I'm going to go to... I want to delete the faces. So, again, you know, say it out loud. I want to delete faces. Okay, faces. I need to be in face mode. And then I'm going to carefully go around, click all the top faces, make sure I've not got anything selected around where I don't want it to be, because if you quickly start selecting and try and speed through it, you're going to start making mistakes, and I've made a few mistakes there. I've done some horrible stuff. There's faces that are being selected which I don't want, so take your time. Take your time. Again, this is one of the things that when people say that, oh, Maya's terrible because it's breaking, it's corrupted, it's not. People just don't know how to use it. So I'm going to carefully go around and select. And if you want to select a few at a time, then delete them. And all I'm doing there is just hitting delete. That's all I'm doing. Select a few more. Delete. Select a few more. Delete. There you go. And while I'm doing that as well, I might as well be checking if I've not got anything over selected. You know, accidentally I might have selected through the mesh. I don't want to get rid of these faces. Okay, so with those, delete. So I've deleted them top faces, which is then exposing the inside. These bottom faces here, because there's nothing in the way, if I look down at it, I can just hold left click, drag a box over it, delete. And then that's boom, that's what I want. Perfect. Now I'm going to move this back in the Z-axis to 0. So it's in the middle there. Now the last thing is going to be actually making sure that the bottom ring, the bottom group of edges here, are actually in line with the top of my cube. Again, very, very easy to do. I need to align the edges. Boom. I need to align the edges. So I need to be in edge mode. So yeah, I could actually do this off to the side a little bit if I wanted to. So in edges, that's again going to hold and right click, edges, because I need to affect the edges. And then again, hold shift, just click and go round. Boom, and then we're done. And now what I want to do is actually move these up and down, translate these up and down, so they're in line with the top of this cube. So move W in it. Press W on my keyboard, get this, and I need to move them up and down, so that's the Y-axis. Now, how do I actually get them in line with the top of this box? That's very, very easy. If you hold V on the keyboard, V is, if you just hold V on its own, it's a snapping tool. It's a magnet tool, essentially. You'll see that the manipulator itself, when I hold V, the middle turns into a circle. It means it's turning into snap mode. But then at the very top here, you'll see if I keep pressing it, you'll see it flashing. This is the magnet icon basically saying it's activated. And this is saying it's a magnetizing, it's snapping to that dot. It's a vertex. Now a vertex is the point in which edges meet. Vertexes are the thing that make 3D work. Without vertexes, 3D doesn't work. It's the soul of 3D. So right here, that is a vertex. This little dot at the side. So, holding V, not B, V, I'm going to drag up with my mouse on the Y-axis, not in the middle, just on the actual, I only want to move in the Y-axis, but then I'm going to move my mouse to where one of those vertexes are, because what I'm doing is I'm constraining the movement to only move up and down, but then it's going to align to whatever vertex is close to my mouse. So if I move up higher, it's going to snap to the top, because there's only them vertexes there. If I move down, it's going to snap to the bottom, because there's only vertexes there. So then I just make sure I hover my mouse around there, and you can see that that is now perfectly in line with that. So yeah, boom, grab that, 0 in the Z-axis, you're all good. So now, there's not going to be any kind of like weird up or weird down slant in that geometry now. Cool. So now what we're going to do is actually delete the top of the cube. So I'm going to select the cube, I'm going to delete the top face. There you go. And delete it. So what I've done there is I've started to set up, I'm going to change the background, Alt-B to change the background. I've set up faces to connect to each other in a bit. Well, right now. To make this a bit easier, what I am going to do is turn on the wireframe, which is right here. So where my mouse is, it's a little blue cube with white lines. So now we can see the wireframe, the skeleton of the mesh. And things are about to get a little weird. We're going to start thinking about things almost like in an intermediate modeling way. I'm going to, extrude. We're going to learn about extruding, which is our, I think the first tool. Yeah, we've only used, the only tool we've used so far is going to be extrude, which is the cornerstone of all 3D. So what we're going to do is extrude out the bottom of this cylinder, and then we're going to snap the vertexes into the corner of these. We're going to make triangles, and we would have discussed in class about the hierarchy of the best shaped polygons down to the worst, and then the kind of ones that are okay but useful in certain areas. We're going to make triangles which are okay for hard surfaces that are never going to bend, that don't articulate, they don't undulate, don't curve. Triangles are fine on a perfectly flat surface when it's not going to kind of move in animation. Triangles can never be used on stuff which is curved or things that are going to kind of move and stuff. Some of you might come at me with like, oh, but I ripped this, or I've got a ripped model from a game and it's all in triangles. That's different. That's called tessellation. The original model would have been cubes, would have been squares, polygons, not triangles. It's something about game engines that we might discuss in future. Anyway, so I'm going to select the cylinder. I'm going to select the cylinder. I'm going to extrude the edges from the bottom. So I'm going to extrude the edges. Boom. And if this isn't selected anymore, if these aren't selected anymore, I can go around and click, shift, click, click, click. Or I can double click this bottom ring. Now the great thing about this is if I double click an edge that goes round like this, it'll select the entire thing going round. So double click, bang, look at that, selected. And then I'm going to extrude. Now extrude is, like I said, it's the cornerstone, it's the thing that makes modeling work. Without extrusion we'd be buggered. Extrude is right here on our poly modeling shelf. It's a little tower that comes out of like white grid. Click that, and you're going to get this little option box that turns up. and just play with some. So I'm clicking and dragging on these parameters. So it might be worthwhile just kind of like having a play with, see what these do. But all I'm going to do is, in the thickness, I'm just going to pull it out a little bit, because I want to expose its new faces. And what's happened there is I've selected those edges going around the bottom, and extrusion basically makes a new set of faces that we pull out. Basically, it makes more geometry for us. So there you go. Isn't that cool? So with this new geometry here, I'm now able to fill in the top of this cube which we deleted a bit ago, and this is why we deleted it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to snap the vertexes to the corners of the box, to the corners of the cube. Now again, listen to what we're saying. We're going to snap the vertexes. So we're dealing with vertexes, which means we're going to be holding right click, going to vertex, but then we're going to be snapping vertexes. Now we've already done that. We've already snapped vertexes, haven't we? So select a vertex, press W for our movement tool, and then V for vertex. And what we're going to do is drag from the middle to the corner here. And what we're going to do is also look at the way this whole object, the wireframe set up, and why I was talking about before about having that cross section. You've got an equal distribution, so from this edge here to this edge here, you've got 3 edges. From this edge here to this edge here, 3 edges. This edge here, 3 edges. You get it? So this is, again, it's all very easily quarterable. We're not dealing with weird 17 edges going round, and that's a weird number. It's nice and even. 16 edges. It can be divided. I think it's like divisible by 4. It's science stuff that I don't necessarily care about. Or math stuff, not science stuff. So what I'm going to do is start off and go corner by corner first. So we're dealing with vertexes. I'm going to grab this vertex here, which is pretty much like, if you look in its position to the corner, press W for our movement tool, hold V for our snap into vertex, and literally I'm just going to drag it, boom. You see how it snaps? Now the reason why we only used the y-axis before is because we only wanted to move in the y-axis. We didn't want to move side to side, front and back. If we grab from the middle, it snaps to any vertex near our mouse, which means we can go up, we can go down, we can go over here, whatever. But I want to snap it to this point here. So V, snap. Go to the next one. Again, find that correct vertex. V, snap. Is it in the right position? It is. Find the corner. V, snap. Is it in the right position? It is. Always check. Checking, checking, checking. Hold V, snap. Awesome. So we're starting to build the structure, build a correct structure for our object. And then I'm going to grab the one on the, this is the 2 either side of that, and drag it to the same place. So this one, I'm going to hold V, snap it there. Okay. V, snap it there. Hold V, snap it there. Hold V, snap it there. Oops, like that one's gone too low, so I need to just pick it up. Select, hold V, snap it. Select, hold V, snap it. Select, hold V, snap. Select, hold V, snap. Boom. Easy. So starting to connect these things together. Now, those of you who might have been doing modeling in the past, or you might have seen these in, I don't know, magazines or whatever, websites. Bruh. There are points when triangles are actually used to generate like ceiling geometry or something. This is what I was saying about triangles on flat surfaces are fine. There are caveats to that, but triangles on flat surfaces are fine. The reason why we use them is often to, in cases like this where we've got 16 edges going into 4 edges. So we can't, that doesn't match up, does it? We're literally 12, we're down 12 faces from one to another. So what we need to do is bring a number of them together as neatly, as evenly as we can to basically decrease that number. That's cool. Now what we've got left over is a little vertex on each corner there. Now what we could do is hold V and snap, drag that over to one of the different corners. The reason I'm not going to do that is because it makes a very stretched polygon here. This polygon is not nice. This is a, we want to, I know we talk about triangles being okay in this. Generally, triangles are okay, but when we have quads, we want to try and have the quads be as neat as possible. Even if it's a rectangle or if it's a perfect square, as neatly as possible. So that it's still a four-sided shape because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's stretched. It's horrible. So we don't do that. What I'm going to do is introduce us to another one of our big 5 tools. So we've used extrude, the big daddy of the family. Next, we're going to add divisions to something. Okay, and we can do this a number of different ways, but I'm going to show you the one that we're going to use probably the most at the beginning. And why we're doing that is so that I'm going to add another edge that goes round to the other side, so that we can snap these in line here and make it nice and neat. So, adding divisions, very, very easy. We have to add edges in, or cut edges. Main word there, edges. So I need to go to edges, and I want to send an edge from here round to here, going underneath. So what I'm going to do is grab this edge there, and then hold shift and click round there to there, like that. So I'm going to be adding an edge going that direction. Mesh tools, connect. There you go, mesh tools, connect. You see this little green line appear? This green line is like a preview. It's showing you where the edge is going to be. And we can, if we hold middle mouse and drag left and right, we can actually increase and decrease that if we wanted to. But we're just going to add one. So, selecting those edges going all the way around. Press W to basically confirm. Now we've got that edge is actually physically there. We're going to do the exact same on the opposite side. So, now that we've added it going that direction, we're going to add it going boom, boom, and then going across like that. Mesh tools connect. So now we've got one going across like that. So now what we can do is reselect our cylinder, go to vertexes, and then drag that to there. To there. To there. To there. Like that. Beautiful. And now what's happened is we've got vertexes in those positions perfectly. It's still 2 separate meshes, but we're going to fix that right now. So we're going to introduce ourselves to the third object, the third function of our big toolkit, and this is called combine. It's another tool that we cannot do anything without. You know, we need combine. And what combine does is combine. Easy. So I'm going to select this, hold shift, select this. So now we've got both of them selected. Combine is right here. It's a little circle with 2 little orange plates in it. I click combine, and those are now combined. They're not merged, they're not welded together, but they're basically selectable as one group. It's still technically 2 separate objects. And that's what we're going to fix now. And this is the fourth tool, and this is merging. So again, combine, we need that. Adding edges, we need that. Extruding, we need that. Merging, we really need that, because that stops us having all these different objects be completely separate and fly off, actually having them be solid pieces of geometry now. And this is really easy. For this one, we just select everything and hit this, merge, which is right here. It's 4 to the right of extrude, if you remember where that is. So click that. There we go. So now if I go and grab that vertex, it's all connected in one group, whereas before, if I was to do that, it's not connected. So object mode, because we want to select the whole thing as one group, merge, all good. So now we're moving up, and we're going to make this little lippy thing here. So we're going to use extrude and edge adding to do this. And you know, we've already done our 4 tools. We've got 2 more tools, which technically make it 6. Whatever. We've got 2 more tools to use, and those are the only tools. That set of tools then is everything. So we're going to use extrude again. So what we're going to do is extrude up, but what I see a lot of new modelers do is they would start to extrude and try and shape this bell kind of shape. But what I want us to think about is, I'll get my pen to show you this, is what I call making the journey. So if I know that I'm going to be going from here, excuse me. Oh, it's because it's always on top. Yeah, if I do that, there we go. So, because if I know I'm going from here to, say, here, what I'm going to do instead of going like that round is I'm going to go a straight line. I'm going to make a straight line right in. And then I'm going to make this. Because what happens when you do that kind of stuff, you start to you'll extrude in little motions, and then you get to about there, and then you get a bit sick of extruding, so you start going a bit longer, and then it starts to look really naff. So by doing that, you're already completing the journey, and then you can add a few edges in to then make that shape, and it's much cleaner, much cleaner. Right, set that to always on top again. Always on top. There you go. So, I'm going to select, again, all I can do is select edges, because I'm dealing with edges. Double click the top ring, because I just need to select all that ring. Extrude. But this time what I'm going to do is use the normal tool. So I'm not going to use this box that comes up. You can do if you want to. Because all you have to do is thickness to come in and then offset to come up. We can do that. That's fine. But another way you can do stuff is, if you want to have a bit more control, I can use scale. I can just use my scaling tool. Press R for scale, bring it in. Press W for my movement, lift it up. And then I'm just going to, again, I'm going to eyeball this in. Okay. And then, you know what, we might as well just carry on with that a little bit. So extrude again. Where do we go from here? We will go up and out a little bit. And then where do we go? Well, we kind of go in a little bit again. So we go extrude, come up, and in. And then where do we go? Well, we go up into this kind of shape here. But again, think about not going and trying to make this shape straight away, but making the direct paths from one to another. So extrude up, and then we do come in a little bit like that. Okay. And then we come up and then in, so extrude up as a straight line, and then extrude, and then we're going to scale inwards to get to the bottom of the pole like that. Let's say like that, and then we go up. So how far do we go up? We go up quite a ways. So again, extrude, up, up. Now what's really good about doing this way as well is what we're doing is we're sketching out the object. It's nice and simple. We're sketching out the object. But if we basically go and try and make everything perfect as we're working up, what we might find is we've not been observing our shape enough, or we've just not been paying attention, and you'll zoom out, and then that bottom bit with the little bell that comes out is actually really squashed. But then the bit that should be a bit more squashed is a bit more taller, because we're over concentrating on these separate elements. So what we're doing here is let's just go and like, okay, bump, 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 bump. Does that look? Is that proportional? Do I need to make any adjustments? Because if I need to make any adjustments, I can do. Okay, so then we go up to about there, let's say, and then we'll stop where this cube is. So come back down, and then we'll start to, work back on those areas. Okay, so this little bit here, really simple. What I'm going to do is add an edge at a time, kind of. So I'm going to basically work in this half and then half and then half method that you'll always see me working in. So this edge here, so another way of quick selecting as well, instead of having to go around and quick click, is if I just click an edge, hold shift, and then double click in the direction where you want to select. So I want to go round in this direction. So hold shift, click, hold shift, double click, and it selects all the way around, which is awesome. So what I'm doing there is going to mesh tools connect, add a single edge in, and that middle edge is about here. So I'm just going to use my scale tool and kind of scale it out. Okay. And then I'm going to add an edge at the top here, and then also an edge at the bottom there. So I'm going to add equal divisions. I'm not going to overdo the bottom and then underdo the top. So again, mesh tools connect, And then I can just go though that, and then like that, and then I'm going to add another one at the top here, and another one at the bottom here. Mesh tools connect. Always using the same stuff. That's all it is. Now I am going to break off that a little bit. I am going to start to add a bit more information on one bit and not as much on the other, and start to essentially add a little bit of asymmetry. I'm going to add another one down here because this is what we call a quick turn. So I will get my pen up again. So a quick turn is, say, something like that. That's a quick turn because it's a curvy here, yeah, but when we come down here, the curve is faster. It's a fast curve. It's a quick curve. Instead of like being like that, which is a consistent curve, this quick curve. So what we've got here is, whoops-a daisy. It's flatter and then it speeds up there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is add a few more, like one more edge underneath, just to give it that extra little bit of curve at the bottom. Again, just using Mesh Tools Connect. I'm going to move it down, then move it out a little bit, like that. And then I'm going to start to move some of these these loops up and down, and use a scale tool to bring them out, just to get that shape back in there, because that's not looking quite right. And again, this is why we want to work in areas, we want to work nice and simple first, and then as we're adding the information, we can start to make simple adjustments. So I'm going to just move this up, start move this up a little bit, start to bring this out a little bit, bring this up a little bit. So for me, this doesn't look as deep as this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically move all the vertexes from everything above it upwards. So I'm going to move my camera so I'm basically looking straight on. Go to vertex mode, and I'm going to grab everything from the top down to here. Because what I don't want to do is affect anything for the bottom of the plate. And why I'm doing that is because I'm going to move it all up, and then go back and select this bit here to then scale that. And why I'm doing that is if I was just to scale it from here, I'm decreasing this line, I'm decreasing this too much. I mean, I can do that, and then I just zoom out and pull it back up. You know, I'm not breaking anything, it's just the way that my brain works as I'm modeling. You know, I decide to do something. So I can select all that, move it up a little bit. That feels a bit nicer. So literally all I've done there is that little mushroomy head section. I've just kind of scaled it upwards to give it a bit of depth. And then when we move up, we've got a little bit of an angle here. So what I'm going to do is add 2 edges here. So again, Mesh Tools Connect, but I'm going to middle mouse drag once to increase it to 2. Like that. And now I'm going to scale, but I'm going to scale ignoring the y-axis. How do I do that? Very simple. You might have noticed that around the move tool and the scale tool, you've got these little squares, these little colors. Now what these are doing is, if I want to scale just in the Z and the X axis, but not have the Y axis come into play, I grab the green square, because that's basically the color you want to ignore. Because if I was just to grab from the center and scale out, it's going outwards, because the Y axis is also increasing, and then if I come inwards, it's also getting closer together because the y-axis is decreasing. So what I can do is grab the little square there and then just do, because this means it's going to move out in the X and Z but not in the Y. So something like that. And then we've got another little bulge here, so same thing. What I'm going to do is again add 2 edges. Grab that axis, scale it out. And then just start grabbing individual bits and now what I'm going to do is introduce us to a new tool. So part of our big 5/6. The bevel tool. Brilliant tool, but you've got to be a bit careful with it because people can get a bit bevel happy. What the bevel tool does is it takes an edge, so I'll do it on a single edge here. It takes an edge, So bevel tool is right here. It's a cube with a little Y in the inside. It takes an edge and it splits it. Like that. So this edge has now been split up into two. But there's repercussions that happen. And this is one of the rules of 3D we really have to think about. It's this cause and effect. When you do something to an object, it might have impact in other areas. So if I just bevel this one edge, yes, it splits it off to two, and then I can increase it and all that kind of stuff. But then what's happening either side of it is it's making very negative geometry, bad geometry. So this face, this face, this face, and this face, they've actually now got 5 edges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that's called an n-gon. Anything that's more than 4 sides is called an n-gon, and we really don't want those. Really don't want those. So when it comes to beveling with this, all we need to do is just make sure we've got the whole ring selected like that. So why are we doing this? It's because I want to add a little bit of curve to this, but I can do that by beveling, increasing the factor. And you see how I've kind of increased that little bevel, that little circle shape now? And again, I can just do a few adjustments. There you go. So now I've made, if we just step back, nice. And all we've done so far is made basic geometry, extruded, snapped edges into places, combined, merged, and beveled. Basic. Then we come up. We're going to just jump past this one for the time being, because this is pretty simple. It's kind of what we've been doing down here. But we are going to add... So we're going to... and then we're going to... so like that. Okay, cool. And again, not all this information is like end of done, we're finished and all that kind of jazz. We might come back to it and fix it up later on. We're literally just sketching where we've done a really rough sketch at first. Now we're starting to refine the sketch a little bit as we go through, and then we'll do the detailing later on. So I'm going to come up because I'm eager to get onto this bit here, the cube. So we've come from a cube into a cylinder, and now we need to go from a cylinder back into a cube. How might we do that? We've already done it. We've already done it. Cube. Let's make a cube. Bring it in. Make sure it's in the middle of the world. And then we lift it up to about the right position. Make sure it's... So I'm looking, how much distance do we have around the sides there? Something like that. Now what I'm going to do here as well is, because I can see that this pole continues on through the cylinder, through the cube. So what I'm going to do is actually grab the top of the cylinder, which I know is inside the cube, and I'm going to pull it through. Because what I'm going to do is cut off, I'm going to cut a hole, cut a gap in this tube. Again, just by using that channel box, channel box, Mesh Tools Connect method. So again, in edge mode, I want to cut across here, so I'm going to select an edge, hold shift, double click, select all the way around this. Mesh Tools Connect, but I'm going to add 2, which are already there. So I've added 2 positions there. So all I need to do is move them up, scale them in. I basically need to move them up so I can see them. There we go, just like that. Just move them up so I can see that we have that and we have that. And then in the middle, I just need to delete all these faces. And I noticed there, I've done the same trick as I did with, that I can do with the edges. Select one, hold shift, double click in the direction you want to select round. I just did it with faces. So face, select a face, hold shift, double click, goes around in the direction that you need it. Delete that, again, just hitting delete. And then I'm also going to delete the top face here and the bottom face there for exactly the same reasons as we did it before. Now, what about those edges? Well, let's add those edges in. In fact, we could have done that when we had the cube made like this. So let's select those edges, going all the way around. Mesh Tools Connect. Make sure it's just one. Again, let's go round. Mesh Tools Connect. There we go. So really, I just want these edges on the outside. So let me just get rid of them. Get rid of them. Make sure I've not got anything over selected. So I've not got faces selected, which I don't want to have selected. Delete. Cool. So now all we're going to do is, again, align those edges with the top of the cube, because the cube won't change shape. But so I double click the bottom of this, press W for my move tool, hold V, and drag it down in the Y-axis until it snaps in the right position. There we go. You see how we're using the same thing over and over again? It's just the same thing. The hard thing about 3D is knowing what to use and when. But when you understand, or when you start seeing the patterns of, oh, I'm doing a cylinder into a cube, this. I'm doing this, I know how to do this. And that's why practice is incredibly important. And then here, I'm just going to do the exact same thing as I did before. Select the ring going round, extrude, just bring it out a little bit. You can bring it out more if you want. It don't really matter how much you bring it out. And I'll do the same thing up here again. So you've seen as I'm extruding one, I might extrude the other. And then go around and just grab that vertex, drag it into the corner, and then the two either side of it. And then work your way around and basically do exactly what we were doing before. Now, one thing you will get to do as well, you will end up doing, but as you practice, it's another reason why practice is good, is you'll become less vertex blind. Because it's like when you look at a map and you've never really been taught how to read a map. It's just a bunch of squiggles and colours. But as you use a map and you read a map, you start to see things. You start to make it more clearer. You hear it when musicians talk about hearing tones and timbres, and some composers can hear when an instrument's off, or hear what instruments are made of, because their ears are basically getting less blind to music noise. Same things where that's audible blindness with visual blindness. So my eyes are very well trained in looking at the grey, the blue, and the purple, and being able to see stuff. One thing you might get at first is just a bit kind of overwhelmed and confused about what you're actually looking at. But going slow, step by step, that's what it's all about. And just taking your time. There's no race, there's no rush. And doing stuff like this, it forces you to do the same thing over and over again. I know I've said it, but one thing we will never really learn about at the very beginning as well is shortcuts and how to do this. That like the Blender Guru way of doing it, where it's all kind of useless. It looks okay, but it's actually useless because it's not functional. No, we're going to learn how to do stuff the old-fashioned way, the proper way, because it forces you to learn the tools. There you go. So now we've got two objects, but all the vertexes in the right position. So again, shift click, select both of them, combine our little ring with orange paper, and then once we've combined, we merge. There you go. So now that is all one side mesh. Awesome. And while we're here, we might as well carry on to go up to the top here. So let me grab the top here and we'll drag it up a little bit. And then we're going to extrude, and then basically eyeball in the depth from this top bit here to this bottom bit here. We're going to basically go up. Oops, it is about that, and then we're going to extrude to make it to the top. Now the reason we're extruding like that, it's the same reason we extrude down below. And I guess I should have explained this before. I guess it's easy to show it in to explain it with something like this. You've got a solid shape, a solid unaffected cylindrical shape that has some kind of information in the middle of it. So straight, wobbly, straight. You need these edges here to... It's basically a border between geometric information. When any angle changes, when anything starts to do this and stuff, you need edges to allow you to do that. Without those edges, I wouldn't be able to make this shape. But what this also allows me to do is have measurements, essentially. So I can sit back and think, okay, I've got straight, then I've got a bit of wobble, then I've got straight. Okay, does that look about right? Is that giving me the right separation. So now I can look at this and think, right, let's break this down. We've got a little, kind of like a mushroom top that's at the bottom, and then we've got another one of these. So what I'm going to do is put another edge in the middle. Mesh tools connect, make sure it's one. And then I'm going to make this little mushroom section at the bottom. So I'm going to go, it's kind of coming out, and then it's coming out a bit more, and then it's coming out a bit more. So let's use them just to get the shape looking a bit nicer, because it does come out a fair whack. And then I'm going to put another one up here. Okay, and then one more at the bottom. That's going to allow me just to pull it down to have that nice little quick curve like that. Okay, so that's a bit done. Next bit looks to be more like a bulge, but I kind of see, so I'm just going to add two, scale them out, and then pull them out. Add another two in there, pull that out. Put another one at the top here. Pull that up a little bit. Put another one down here. Oops. Pull it in. Push it up. Because I kind of see a little bit of a thing around here as well, so I'm thinking I might just give it a little. So extrude it out. Pull it in. Kind of something like this. Like that. It maybe the information. I'm a little bit too concerned about small information there, because when you step back, you might not actually see it. But okay, that's looking, you know, as close as I'm going to care about it today. And then I've got this sort of thing. So I'm not going to bother doing these. I'm going to make it a bit more simpler. But essentially, what we've got is the bottom. So I'm just going to give myself a base, a flat kind of like cubey base to work off to put the lamp on top of. We've done it before, so we've done it right there. So let's make a cube. This one I'm going to be a bit clever with. I'm going to give myself an extra subdivision down each edge. So I'm going to make, in the subdivision width height in L here, I'm going to go 2. Like that. Actually, no, I don't need it in height, so I just need it in width and depth. Yeah, like that. Because then that sets up for the information that I'm going to use later on anyway. So let's bring it up. First of all, let's set it to the middle of the world first. Let's bring it up. Let's squash it down. And this I'm going to kind of eyeball design kind of thing. So I'm going to squish it down. I'm going to scale it out. I'm going to step back, see what it looks like. Actually, you know what? That looks pretty good. That doesn't look too big up there. But again, I'm going to take away those faces. Top and bottom. I'm going to grab the bottom of the cube this time, hold V, and do the same thing, align it to the top of the cylinder. Extrude out the cylinder. So extrude, scale that out. And then I'm going to, I combined it. I went into kind of autopilot mode then, because I know I'm going to combine it later on. So literally I just combined it then. So I didn't need to wait. I can combine it whenever I want. So let me just snap, snip, 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 snip. Now I also suspect that people might be getting a bit frustrated with the speed in which we do this. You might feel very slow at the very beginning, because you're also going to be getting used to the way we navigate, the way we move around, getting used to what we do with our left hand and what we do with our right hand, how the camera wants to work. Just take your time. Again, there's no rush at all. If you rush, you're going to end up making mistakes, and then you get frustrated. When really, if you just take your time, you'll always make mistakes. You'll mess stuff up royally. You know, Mistakes are good. We want to make mistakes. We want to make all the mistakes we can do as much as we can. Mistakes are only failures when you don't learn from them. But we're going to learn from them, so mistakes, we're going to make them. Cool. So then I can combine that. Well, I've already combined it. And then I'm going to merge it. Bang. So we've done that using a handful of tools. Really good. What's that? We've got an hour so far. We're moving quite slow as well. So let me just jump down, quickly make this. So I'm going to kind of speed run this a little bit. Because obviously I know what I'm doing. But all I'm doing here is just doing the exact same thing as I've done before. I'm just scaling stuff out, rearranging stuff, resizing stuff. And then I see something at the bottom, so I'm just going to... A little bit of extra je ne sais quoi. I see a bit of this going on. Just on one at the top here, I'm just going to... Okay. Boom. Nice. So what I'm going to do now is start to add those little poles at the side. But I'm going to make these out of the actual mesh, because I'm going to show you a fun thing we can do with the mesh. This is introducing tools that aren't part of our... Well, one of them is part of our big main tool set. The others are just kind of like things. So what I'm going to do is make these out of the same mesh as this by making a mess first. Making some bad geometry and fixing it up. So what I want to do first of all is make an edge going round the middle of this little cube section. So select all the edges going round. Add an edge like that. So I'm going to grab... I'm looking at my little gimbal. Oh, it's just behind my head here. But I'm looking at my little... there we go. I'm looking at my little axis at the bottom left of the screen. And I'm going to add these on the x-axis. So... This right here is the z-axis coming forward, so I'm going to add it on here and here. So I'm going to grab these vertexes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the bevel tool to split these vertexes into a number of them. And then I'm going to... We talked about n-gons before. I'm going to make n-gons and then fix them, turn them into circles, and then start extruding out this information. You'll see it's really fun. So yeah, I'm going to grab them vertexes and I'm going to hit bevel. Remember, that's our cube with a little like white Y in the front of it. So you see what happens there. So that now becomes like a little diamond shape, making every face that's around it a 5-sided shape. I'm going to use the width to expand it, and I'm going to kind of look at my reference and see the foot where it joins in this. Now I'm doing these both at the same time, so they're both going to take the same information. So we're going about that. Now here comes the fun bit, and this is the stuff that, unless you've been doing this for ages or you've had someone explain why and how and when to do this, you'll never think about doing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth or subdivide these two faces, so we'll go from one face to 4 faces, and then I'm going to circularize them to make them into a circle to then extrude out from, making another way of making you know, a cube turn into a cylinder. That was another way we could have made the bottom of the whole thing, was making our cube, making a vertex at the top, bridging it, subdividing it a couple of times so it's got a lot of edges going around, then extrude up from there. Because then it would have looked identical. It's just another different way. There are like 100 different ways of making the same thing. So what I'm going to do is subdivide or smooth, and I do that by clicking this icon here. It's the from combine here. It's the 4th one along. This isn't, for me, this isn't part of our big tool set, because I think smoothing is a risky thing to show people. But smooth, what it says on your hover over is smooth. Add faces to selected polygons, objects to smooth them. So I'm going to hit that. and you'll see on the inside that it turns into 4 faces. Now the great thing about that is we had 4 edges before. Now we've got 8 edges, so we've doubled the amount of edges. And then what we're going to do is grab the faces again. And again, this isn't one of our hero tools, big set tools. We're going to circularize them, which is basically you select something and then you can turn it into a circle. And that's right here. So it's pretty much right at the end of our tool set. It's this little, like, it's an orange circle with a white square behind it. We click that, and then boom, you see how it's actually made them into circles? Very good. And then you can use your radial offset inside this little menu that pops up. Radial offset just makes it bigger and smaller so I can adjust stuff. Okay, I'm happy with that. That looks about right. The great thing about this is when we fix this, when we clean it up, we're not actually going to have any triangles. Because, again, when you've been doing this for a while, you'll start to see the patterns. And that's why puzzle games and pattern games are so good. If we look down at the bottom, whoop, obviously we had 12 edges going into 4 edges. You know, we didn't have enough to make a nice square setup down here, so we've had to revert to triangles. However, up here, because we only have 8 edges going round into initially was 4, that would be a little bit neater. However, because we added this edge going across the middle, we've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 edges going around this, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've got 8 edges going around the outside. And all we're going to do is create a new edge going from here to here. Now this is technically part of our big set of tools, our big 6, our big 5. This is essentially making an edge. So adding edges in is a whole... I umbrella term them under one tool set, because you've got about 3 or 4 ways of adding edges into geometry. This is just another way of doing it. I just put it under the same kind of thing. This one is called a multi-cut tool. So instead of going to Mesh Tools Connect here, instead what we're going to do is come up to here on our toolbar, and you've got this little scalpel icon right there. It's called a multi-cut. And again, let's read that. Oh, come back. It says multi-cut, tool to cut, slice, and insert edges on polygons. Really good tool. And the reason we're going to do that is because I don't want to change this circle, so I don't want to be grabbing stuff and snap it up there. Don't want to be doing that. So what I want to do is create a new edge. So what I'm going to do is click multi-cut. I'm going to click on the vertex I want to go from to the vertex I want to go to, and then press W. Now that's added in an edge. And again, I'm going to take my time with this. Make sure I'm hovering over, and it goes to this red dot, so that's saying it's going to be a vertex. Then hover over, going to be a red dot. There you go. So I go around and basically just do that. So that's now, there's no n-gons anywhere there. We fixed it. Now you might be noticing as well that the mesh is kind of turning dark grey in places or black in places. That's a natural thing with the modeling process. We can fix it. It's a natural thing with the modeling process. It's because this is kind of trying to be smooth. It works on the cylinder because cylinders are smooth rounder objects anyway. The angles between one face to another never exceed a massive number, never exceed like 45 degrees, or 90 degrees I should say. However, this cube that we've made up here is a soft cube. It's a right angle cube obviously, but all the edges are soft. And what the edges are trying to do is give you a soft transition from one edge to another. But anything over 90 degrees, like I said, becomes too much of an angle. That's the kind of struggle. Quick fix for this, just to kind of... It's not going to fix it all, but just to stop looking at that, because I know some people really don't... It just annoys them that it's there. If we just select the object, come up to Mesh Display, and just click Soften Harden Edges. And what that does is it looks at the whole mesh, and any edge above a certain number, it creases the edge, it hardens the edge. It's done it in places I don't want it to do, but that's fine. It just fixes it a little bit. Cool. Right, so now we're going to do this really cool... it's not even a trick, it's just a way of working. We're going to make both of these beams together at the same time, only using the extrude tool. So boop, 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 boop. And we're not going to press W or scale or anything like that for this. Well, we might use the normal scale tool, but we're going to try and use the tools that it gives you as much as possible. Like the little box that comes up. So I'm going to hit extrude. And then, right, what it kind of comes out. So let's bring it forward, and then let's bring it out. So I'm using thickness and offset just to kind of begin this kind of shape. And then we hit extrude again, and it looks like we come in. So what I'll do is I'll use offset to bring it in. And then it looks like we come forward and in a little bit. So then I will hit extrude again. We'll add thickness. And then offset to bring it in a little bit. We'll step back, see what it looks like. Oh, it's okay. We'll make some adjustments. Okay, and then we've got the end there, so then we extrude. Again, pull out. Extrude. Add thickness. It does look like it gets a little bit fatter near the end. Touch fatter. And then I think it just goes, it comes through like that, and then it might just come in a little bit like this. Something like that. Now what my issue is with this is that it's just a little bit fat, like that's really wide where that's not really wide. And this is the observation stuff. In my best, like, in my good conscience, I can't call that okay. So it's in there anyway, the geometry's in there. But what I'm going to do now is work on both sides at the same time using the scale tool. And it's a set, we've already done this as well. I don't want the x-axis to be involved, because if I was to scale in or out, you can see how it's, if I scale in, it's pulling in because the x-axis has been involved. If I scale out, you know what I mean. So I want to ignore that. So what I'm going to do is click on the red square, and I'm going to use that instead. So it's coming in the Z and the Y axis, but not in the X axis. So I can do that on that one as well. Might as well do it on that one. Still looks kind of big. Could do both of these at the same time, actually. Okay. It still looks really chunky. I think I might also just scale these out like this, and then scale these bits out like this, and then just this. Like that. So this might look like, oh my god, complex. It's not. All I'm doing is just grabbing vertexes for specific areas. So I only want to affect the end of this little thing here. So I'm just grabbing the vertexes there. Okay, that's better. I feel better, but that, yeah, that's much better. Much better. Look at that. It's looking pretty damn good, that. Now what I'm going to do last of all is make the lamp up top, including, I'm not going to put the glass in there, but I'm going to make it look like there's glass in there. Now what is that? That's the most complex part of our whole object. It's a cube. It's a cube. So I'm going to start off with a cube. So make a cube. And I'm actually going to build this in place as well. So bring it up to the top. Make sure my pivot points, or D and V, drag from Y-axis down to the bottom of the object. Okay, and then to snap it in line with this, hold V, bring it down. There we go. Scale it down. So it's quite thin at the bottom. Step back. How's it look? Okay, needs to come in a little bit, I think. I'm going to grab the top, and I'm going to bring it up. Again, I'm going to look from an angle that makes me kind of, you know, see the end product a little bit. Okay, that maybe a bit that like that. That feels nice. And then I'm going to extrude up just to make, well, first of all, I'm going to extrude out because there's a little bit of a lip, and then I'm going to extrude up because there's a little bit of thickness, depth there. I'm going to extrude in again, because if you look at the angle in which this roof part kind of comes in, it doesn't meet the end here. It kind of comes in before it meets the end. So I'm going to extrude that in, scale, drag this up, scale it in. Up. Now I'm looking here, we've got this little thing at top, so we're going to need to do another one of those circular things, some circular tricks. So I'm going to just scale this in, do that soften, so I'm going to add, or smooth, I'm going to smooth, and then I'm going to, there we go. And then I can extrude from there. I've noted I've not saved for the entire time as well. I've just noticed that's a really bad one of me. Make sure you save. Save 01 incremental save. We should have really been saving every 5 minutes. That's a really bad one for me. That I'm a bugger for that. That's something I've never got out of. The bad habit. Always be saving. And save incrementally. So when you save, the next save should be 02, 03. Don't just control S all the time. Make sure you save properly. Right. Bit of a scare there. Right, so I'm going to extrude. I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to make some assumptions for the bottom of this. So then I'm going to extrude. I'm going to come up and then bring it in for the middle of this little thing. Extrude, bring it up and scale it out for the top of it. And it looks like it comes out even further. Kind of get a bit of thickness. And then I'm going to bring it up to the top. So then bring it to the middle. Like that. And then I'm going to work my way back down. So I'm going to add some divisions across here. Like that. Going to add like that. Good. Now working down, we need to fix the end on because this is really these shapes are really nasty here. But I'm not going to add edges in like I did for the square down here. I'm going to add them in a bit of a different way. I'm going to fix it a bit of a different way. I'm going to use that multi-cut tool again, and I am going to make some triangles. But what I'm going to do is go from the corner here to this point here. So you'll see from this vertex to this vertex to this vertex. I'm going to do that instead. Carefully going round. And that fixes our, oops. There you go, fixes our problem. You can see there's a little bit of a lip here, so that's why I added this little thickness, so I can just come in and bring it out. And it looks like it does this little like kick up. Edit new. Like that. I'm just going to slap that mesh display hard and soften edge on this dead quick because we've got that. I think it's because when I smoothed it to do the circle trick, it smooths everything. It puts the smoothed edge effect on everything. So I'm going to harden all the edges for now. There you go. I think, you know, like I'm going to leave the lid, the roofing section like that for now. Although I'm going to maybe squash this down. This feels like it needs to be squashed. Like that. So, just before I actually finish this whole thing off, I'm going to make the windows and then I'm going to connect it to this and then we'll be done. This is one of the last cool things we can do. I'm going to select all the, at least in this anyway, there's many cool things we can do. I'm going to select all the edges going around. Or the faces, sorry, or the faces going around, because I'm going to extrude these faces to make the windows. However, by default, if we just click the extrude and then we start to mess with it, it's all kind of one, it comes out as one kind of group. So it gets affected as one mass. However, if we look carefully at what we're looking at on that little menu, so I hit extrude, at the bottom here it says keep faces together. And if I click that off, and then I do the offset, all the faces are now working independently for themselves. So what I can do is literally just offset that in. Extrude again. Now it doesn't matter if this is turned on or off because the faces aren't actually touching, so they're all independent anyway. I can push it in. Extrude, offset in, extrude, push it in a little bit. I'm just going to delete those faces. So now you can see that's cool. And there's two things I'm going to do. I'm going to get rid of all, well, I'm going to cover up the faces on the inside, and then I'm just going to make these little spikes at the top, and then we're good. Oh, and then obviously fix up the inside, like connect this here. So I'm actually going to delete the face on, because now what we've done is we've deleted those window panes, and we can see the inside. So every time you see a black face, it means it's the opposite side of a polygon. So I'm going to delete the bottom face there because we don't need it. That's the inside of this here. And the last thing the last tool we're going to be looking at here is the bridge tool, which is part of our big family of tools. The bridge tool literally bridges. You select one edge and you select another edge and you can bridge between them. But you can only bridge across what we call open faces. Like from... There we go. Oops. Like from here. In fact, I'll show it on a cube to the side. Easier. There we go. So I've got these two cubes. Like that. Number one, to bridge across two things, they need to be part of the same combined group. So we need to combine them together. There we go. So if I want to bridge from this edge here to this edge here, if I try and bridge like this, it's going to say nothing. It's not going to do anything. Can't bridge. You know. That's because... Oops, I did. Double clicked it. That's because these are what we call closed edges. It's closed because there's no holes. It's like a solid shape. However, if I make them open edges and delete these two faces, so now they're open, and bridge between them. Now we can bridge. So it always needs to be an open edge like this. You can't bridge across closed edges. So, going back up to here. I'm just going to say because Maya's doing a weird thing there. There we go. Ooh. There we go. Right. So what I'm going to do is bridge. First of all, I'm going to bridge in these little columns here. So again, from the open edges. So it's a bit tricky. So this is where getting used to the camera's good. So it's this edge here to this edge here. Bridge. Close it off. From this edge here to this edge here. Close it off. Here to here, close it off. Here to here, close it off. There we go. And now to finalize this bit, we're going to use extrude. So we're just going to double click the bottom of this, just to select the entire bottom area. Hit extrude. But then we're going to hit this. It's like a big round orange circle. This is merge to center. What this does, it takes all the vertexes, all the edges, and puts them to the center. So when we extrude then, we literally just made new faces. We've just collapsed all those faces into one. And then we do that at the top. Extrude, merge to center, big round orange ball. There you go. So now we're not actually seeing through the mesh. We're not seeing through the geometry. So if we were to put planes there and apply like a glass texture, we could see inside and not see through it. Like see through the geometry. In fact, no, I'm not going to put them little spikes on there. It's not. I can't be bothered. All I'm going to do now is just bridge this to this. So one thing we can do is look at this and think, yeah, we've got these edges we added in for this. That obviously they're not included on they're not apparent on this one. So we could add those edges in using the multi-cut tool, or we could do some cheekiness where we could snap these vertexes on this bit to the corner. But I think to use the tools, to get used to using tools, I think we will add those extra edges in. So on here, on a lamp, I'm gonna add the edges in a slightly different way. I'm gonna click and drag. So when you click on an edge, you can add a vertex in on an edge, and you can kind of build geometry like this in a circle. for me, I get into the habit of clicking and then dragging into the vertex. So click, drag, and then if I hold shift while I place a point here, for instance, it puts it in the middle. Like that. So same tool, just a slightly different way of using it. So click and slide into the origin point. Hold shift, click in the, and it'll put it in the middle. Drag it down like that. There you go. And then I can do the bridging. So I'm going to combine these together. And then I'm going to select an edge. And then select an edge I want to bridge to, which is this one. Hit bridge. And then basically go through, hit bridge, go through, hit bridge. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Now the last thing I'm going to do is no more modeling. So modeling's done. We'll do a save. No more modeling. And what I'm going to do is neaten it up a little bit. So what might happen through your modeling process is the mesh might look something like this, where it's lost all its hard edges. It looks a bit foamy. Or it might have this thing where some edges are sharp and some edges aren't. Oopsie daisy. So like that. So you might have some edges that are like this sharp, faceted edge and some bits that are a bit soft. What we're going to do is go through and sharpen the edges that we want to be sharp and soften the edges that we want to be, or leave the edges we want to be soft. I'm coming back here because it's really doing my head in this little bit. So I'm going to just, I'm never happy. Right, leave it like that. I will actually leave it like that. Cool. So what we're going to do is soften the entire thing so it becomes a goopy mess. So mesh display, soften edge. So now we've lost all those really nice hard edges. And what we're going to do is go through and harden all the edges we want to be hardened to make it look really nice and crisp. Because if you look at this, you'll see areas where it gets sharper. Like here to here. It's all very, very nice. So, and this is going to really get us understanding how to use the selection tools, the camera navigation. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to select all the edges that I want to select. So definitely want all these, but I want the corners as well, because obviously these are sharp edges. I want this edge sharper, go up. I want this edge sharper, go up. I want that sharper, go up. I want inside there. I want that little edge there and that little edge there. Go up. I want that one, that one, that one. And we can do it here, so you'll see the difference. So it's all a big goopy mess. We go harden edge, and now it looks nice and sharp. Now I'll probably be explaining actually what's happening behind the scenes, like the science of what we're actually doing here, but I'm not doing it in this video. So again, just going through, selecting all the edges you want to be sharp. Pretty much anything that's a right angle needs to be sharp, or anything where you want to have like two materials are actually meeting. So you got like plastic and wood. Like maybe the wood's rougher, the plastic's nice and shiny. You want to have that nice sharp separation between them. And then we go through. Oh yeah, I want that top bit as well, don't I? There you go. Actually, no, that that end bit looks atrocious. So what I'm going to do is select all that again. I'm going to leave that soft. I'm actually going to bevel it. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Like that. Like that. Cool. Again, selecting those edges you want to be sharpened. Or like edges of importance, of emphasis. But again, take your time. Go around methodically. Don't rush. And you also might notice that how I'm actually not going up and actually clicking options for some of this stuff. And that's another thing I'm going to tell you in time. Because I want people to really get to know to use the functions. All the quick stuff that I do, I've kind of I've earned it essentially. You know, I'm able to do these quick shortcuts and stuff because I know what I'm doing. I've got confidence and control of what I'm doing. I also know where the tools are as well, but you know, if I ever have to, I'm able to go back to the options. I know where they are. I'm never lost. Takes a bit of time. Oops. I think that's it. Ish. Something's not quite right there. That's fine. Yeah, there we go. So now we're actually done. So that's, what's that? Hour and a half. Hour and a half. Easy. So now that is, it's not UV'd, but it's game ready. You could put that into the Unreal Engine. You could use that as a placeholder. You could use that, you know, whatever. That's done. That's modeling. Now, what have we actually done? We've used understanding of how to make. We've made two basic primitives for the entire thing. We've made cylinders and we've made cubes, and we've made those 4 times. I think we made 1, 2, 3 cubes, 4 cubes, and 1 cylinder. So yeah, 4 cubes, 1 cylinder, cylinder and cube. We've learned how to manipulate the cubes and cylinders, you know, basic parameters, scale, subdivision axis. We've learned how to move vertexes, edges, and faces around to shape them how we want to. The movement tool, the scale tool. We've not done anything with the rotation tool. we've used the extrude tool a lot, and we found out that it's just about making more geometry. We've used the extrude tool, the combine, we've used smooth, we've used bridge, we've used bevel, we've used merge to center, the multi-cut tool. So we've pretty much covered all our big 5 tools, as well as a couple of nice little extras. We've looked at a couple of cheeky nice little tricks to make geometry out of other geometry, like cubes out of cylinders, or cylinders out of cubes, I should say. And that is perfectly ready for a game engine. There you go. So yeah, that is perfectly ready for a game. That is actually a game asset right there. Boom, done. Done. There you go. So I'll just do a quick save. I'll see you in the next one.